now that you have AI coming in, has that helped your teachers? Are they scared because of it?
A teacher is always a teacher.
In all EdTech companies, we've seen good outcome come from physics wala who went IPO, bad outcome with Unacademy, too much noise, and the last ugly version is obviously Byju's, where everybody's wealth got eroded.
Ravi Bhushan bootstrapped BrightCHAMPS to $10 million in revenue in under a year before raising nearly $64 million. 4 acquisitions later, even the company's teachers hold stock options with no cliff in this EdTech.
What is your opinion of ESOPs?
Building a company is not a single person endeavor. That is not just the people sitting in HQ, but also the teachers who are teaching on the front.
A lot of these acquisitions fail because there is no post-acquisition integration.
I wanted the captain of the ship to be part of the game post-acquisition. Founders should not immediately exit.
Ravi, if you could just kind of give us a little bit of your origins, and is there some aha moment that led you to create BrightCHAMPS? And I was like quite amazed about the homeschooling history. We hear it now. I'm beginning to meet some of my friends who are putting their children through homeschooling. But back then, at least in the age group that you're in, it wasn't that common. So just kind of walk me through, what happened there. Was it by design? And what led to the starting? Is there any of that connectivity to me, that led you to start the tech company itself?
Thanks for having me, Satish, in the podcast. I come from a very tier 3 town from Jharkhand, right? And my parents, my father is a doctor and, he was in government service. My grandfather, he was from education background and a master's from BHU, the university from I also came from the pre-independence time, right? In fact, he was jailed for 13 months just because, Britishers felt that, he dared to take a master degree in English, which supposedly is their language, right? And he was jailed for 13 months just to dare to do that, right? But he did it, and, he got the master degree in English. So my childhood was my grandfather. Imagine a 7-year-old child living with a 70-year-old, right? Because my father was getting transferred here and there, he said that, you better be with your grandfather. And I vaguely remember that, when I crossed grade 3, I sort of realized that, school is not adding a lot of value to me. So I went to my grandfather. He was convinced, he was ahead of time, but he was scared for the fact that my father will not agree. But because my father's father was, convinced, he convinced my father. And that is how it worked, right? So most of my childhood was with my grandfather. And we were exploring things here and there, right? There was no syllabus as such, right? Of course, I was appearing in the exam. There was a condition that, if I am not coming in top 3 in the exam, then I will have to go to a school, which was fine because the school was not such that, wherein it was easy to, come in top 3, right? I felt one thing that, if you are curious about anything and if you are committed to it, then you can learn anything. It's just that, human mind is so very beautiful, right? So that was actually one of the pillar on which BrightCHAMPS is built on, right? Later on, of course, I pursued technology, got a computer science degree from ITBHU, and then got into the tech world. When I was doing my professional, sort of stint, I realized a very important factor in society, right? A lot of my techie friends, they were very successful and they were earning quite a lot. And we used to talk together that, how to deal with money. So we realized that, a lot of people who have money, they don't know how to deal with money, right? They were financially illiterate as such, right? So, the formal education system does not give you any education or, preparation around financial literacy, right? We realized that was the realization that actually there is a miss. There is a big miss in the society wherein the important life skills, which actually matters a lot in later ages, right? Is missing, and it's not part of the education system. And because of that, there is a lot of inferior outcome. The BrightCHAMPS Foundation is basis these 2, learnings. One in my childhood that, there is no limit there is no constraint of age as far as learning is concerned. And second is that, new age skills are very important. That should be taught, if you want anybody to have a superlative outcome. So I started this company with this fact that I will teach K-12 students, young students who are very fertile in terms of grasping new things, right? And then I will teach new age life skills, and that is how it started.
No, it's a fascinating story. I think you should write about it, formally. And your grandfather's story mirrors, so many seniors who did all this during the freedom movement, to get us to where we are. And also, I guess because of the background he came from, and like you said, your father may not have agreed, but your grandfather agreed. Somebody from an educational background who probably deeply thought about the fundamentals rather than just going to school to learn something kind of helped. No, that's a great, awesome story. And I would really request you to write more, write about it so people get to know more. Now, coming to the rest of it, which is the starting of BrightCHAMPS itself. Now, this was started, I believe, in 2020, right? Just a little. Yep. So was there any COVID connection? Was this post-COVID, and did that kind of help you guys because schools had closed, and as a product like this, it was probably a fertile ground to launch something of this kind?
Not necessarily. You can say COVID helped us initially, but we started before COVID, and
Okay.
in fact, I was CTO in housing.com, right? One of the other known startup, right?
Correct.
And I thought of doing something on my own, and I left in 2019, right? And I was taking a break in between, and I was teaching my own child, right? Because I was from technology background, naturally I started teaching him technology, right? And he was in grade 2 that time, right? And it just happened that when I was teaching him, he had a lot of fascination. He still has a lot of fascination around history, right? So he was reading a lot of books on history, Wikipedia, and whatnot, right? So when I taught him like how to code, how to express yourself to machines, he built a very simple app through which you can navigate different part of the country, and it will show you that this kind of food became popular in this part of the country because
Wow.
this kind of people invaded and came from outside, and they basically mixed their food preferences with the local supply, and then this is how something emerged, right? It was very fascinating for me because it was marrying technology with his own interest. I found that very powerful, very, very powerful. And I thought that if my child can do, then why can't others do, right? Why don't I take this itself as a startup, and which also connects with whatever I have learned in my life, that there is no limit of age to learn anything, and this is technology is anyway a very essential skill. But unfortunately, when I started after a few months, COVID hit, but all of a sudden the plan turned upside down. But then I realized that like I was at home and I had left my job. When the COVID happened, a lot of parents and their kids, they were at home, and they were also in a similar setup, right? And I found that that became a tailwind for whatever I was trying to do. So pandemic helped us grow very fast in the early days, but that I think it's just a coincidence, not that I started the company because of pandemic.
So at the time that you started, obviously Edtech had already taken off in India. There were a bunch of companies, including the infamous ones who are no longer present today. So you didn't find any of the existing tools to be useful to teach your child or to refer to other friends. So what made you think that, okay, I need to solve this problem differently than what was available in the market?
See, there were two types of companies available at that point of time. One who were supplying teachers, right, who can teach whatever you want, right? And the other who were supplying a particular course like coding or mathematics or something like that, right? I had a completely different approach. I wanted to create a platform which is synonym to high quality education around all the new age skills, right? So my theory was that, we are living in a time wherein the world is led by technology. So we should have technology education for children. We are living in a time wherein a lot of society is capitalistic, so money is important. So we should provide financial literacy. We are living in a world of automation, so robotics is important and things like that, right? So when I started, it was not a coding course. In fact, the name initially was Techie Gen, which is first class citizen of the technology world, right? And and the idea was never to teach coding. I used to initially, when I used to talk to the parent, I used to tell them that if you want to make your child proficient in English, you are not just going to give them grammar course, right? For example, similarly, if you want to make your child very comfortable with technology, it's not just about coding. Coding is a medium through which you express yourself to the machine, but there are other aspects to technology. You have to be internet smart, you have to understand security, you have to have a sense of design thinking, you have to, and there are various other things like AI, ML, AR, VR, and various things, right? I had a good background of technology, so I thought that I'll give a exposure to the children which provides a comprehensive sort of experience around various aspects of technology. But I found that a lot of parents were fascinated with the word coding, so we ended up taking advantage of that particular thing rather than re-explaining them why coding only is not sufficient. But if you see our curriculum, it is not just coding, it is coding plus plus. So we have design thinking, we have security, we have internet, we have many other things like advanced technology like AR, VR, AI, ML, those things as part of the curriculum.
But since it's what age group were you concentrating on? Because this was not the school syllabus plus, right? This would be all the additional stuff that is outside of the school. So you would probably not teach physics or maths or even teach them in a slightly different way. It would be more focused on things that is outside of what is already covered in the school syllabus.
Yeah, so schools are doing a good job in teaching what they want to teach, right? But I wanted to do more for children, right? So it was whatever there is in the school that if the child is completely unaware, we were covering that in 10-15 classes. But most of 90% of the curriculum was much more than that, right? So in the schools at the early age, they were teaching, and even right now they teach mostly block coding, right? And we had professional languages also. We had, depending upon the age group of the child, right? So we had early group which we call little champs, and then we have mid group which is junior champs, and then the senior group which are senior champs, right? So we had designed the curriculum basis the age of the child or grade of the child, and also the exposure of the child around these things.
So fantastic. So in terms of the syllabus design itself, was that pretty much something that you individually or personally had to do, or you ended up hiring people who were experienced in building curriculums and so on? Just walk me through the first 25 people that you got on board. What kind of people, what skill did they have, and what did you have to train them to get them to? Because this is a education I always consider unique. It's very different, and there's no cookie cutter approach that's going to work here.
Yeah, so the very first curriculum was handcrafted by myself, right? And a large part of it is still relevant. I was coming from technology background. It was not that difficult for me. The only thing which I challenged myself was how to make it relevant and exciting at this age group, rather than making it too technically. I didn't want many technical jargons and many theoretical aspects into the curriculum, right? So I created a curriculum which was more of, the pedagogy was that you will create something which you would love to build because it's exciting and there is a story and narrative behind it, but then underlying you will learn about it, right? For example, if you want to learn how the statements work or how the conditional statements work in coding, I will never go into the class and say that let's learn conditional statements, right? I'll go and say that hey, we are going to make a calculator which will calculate your weight on Earth and your weight on the moon, or whichever planet you go, it will calculate your weight. And there was a simple weight calculator, for example, right? Very young kids used to do it, and they used to show to their parent that hey mom, I'm going to be this many kilo only if I land on the moon. So there was excitement around it. So I wanted a playful, story based, project outcome based course wherein the theoretical learning is underlying, right? So that was one. And second, I didn't want to make it only technology, right? I wanted to connect that with the academics they are going through. So if let's say I'm in grade 6, and if I'm learning, let's say, any concept in my classroom in the school, let's say congruency or similarity or area or perimeter, whatever, right? I should be able to explore those concepts using the power of technology, so that I find it relevant right now. Right? It should not look like that. I'm learning a future skill which will be relevant after 10 years, and there is no practical implication of that particular thing right now in my life. Right? So there was modules like Kodai Math, wherein you can marry coding and mathematics. Right? So you can explore various aspects of mathematics using coding, right? So that was the basis of designing the curriculum. As far as the first 25 guys are concerned, right? I was very lucky. I had a lot of people in my network who were very credible. So some of the people came who had worked with me earlier, right? I had a team. Initially, I focused on building a high quality academy, which is like the teacher are critically important, right? And then I also hired people who were there to build the system, because I wanted to have a big scale. And I also had people who had some out of India exposure, because I wanted to build a global company, right? And for that, it is very important that people who have exposure of those markets, they add their value, and we don't do obvious mistakes, right? So there were people from various walks of company, right? Like, for example, people from academy department, marketing department, technology department. Yeah, but initially I think 10 people were handpicked, right? Those people attracted a few more people, and within 7-8 months, I think we were 100 people plus.
Wow. So bunch of questions there. So in terms of the people itself, you said first one focus was on the teachers, people who actually, so these were people who were actually writing the content post the syllabus getting defined, right? So what was the form? Would this be like, would the syllabus, did the syllabus get implemented into more like a proprietary app, or it was more of video content that this was established, as part of the syllabus? That's one. Second, in terms of the, you talked about the tech people to build the platform. That I'm assuming people who have built products or who know coding and know how to build systems could build it. Teachers obviously brings the domain knowledge in terms of content. But did you need any people who were familiar with Edtech as an industry, that they were familiar with the kind of customers they're dealing with, maybe product manager, user experience designers, and so on? Was that necessary for you at that time, or you thought this is a skill that they can learn once they're inside?
So Satish, I will be very honest here. We didn't have anybody from Edtech industry in the first 20-25 people, right?
Was that by design? That was a more question. Was that, or it didn't matter to you?
Yeah, it was not a very strict requirement, but it was desired. I didn't want to make a copycat, sort of outcome.
Correct.
And then I thought that, let's work with first principle thinking, and let's keep the child and the parent in the center stage, and let's solve their problem rather than, doing what others are doing, right? Because I think that it's not about the idea, it's about the way you execute it is the originality, right? So I think, it was deliberate, but I was not very fussy about it, right? I was like, if I get something who can connect with the purpose and, know how to do it in a particular way, I will have it irrespective. But it just happened that, we attracted most of the talent not from Edtech.
So we talked about the teachers, right? So these teachers, were they active teachers who would come and help part-time, or you employed them and they were fully along, with the company?
We had both, right? Gradually, a lot of when we scaled, more part-time teachers came, but initially we have full-time teachers also and the part-time teachers.
So for any edtech company, and I'm assuming a large part of the product is also to continuously produce this content, right? Obviously with AI and other things which we can get to, but teachers still are the bedrock of, creating this content. Do you kind of see that it's going to be more like a core group of teachers who need to be employed, who will be in the company and so on? Then you can afford to build scale, with people who would want to work part-time, because they will also see this as probably like an additional source of income, and it works for the company also because you probably don't need them full-time. Is that where the general industry is going towards?
Yeah, so in our case, the teacher is not just producing content, but also delivering the content, right? So we have these live classes wherein the teacher come and, teach the child, online, right? For me, it was very important that, if I want to have teachers connected with the platform for a longer duration, there has to be a growth path for them. It's not that, they keep on doing the same thing forever, right? So we revised the journey for them, wherein, in that growth journey, it was very clear to us that, the teachers, if the smart teachers, the good teachers, can add value in various forms. And one is, of course, they will go and teach. Some of them can be very good in terms of, developing the content. Some of them will be very good in auditing the classes. Some of them will be very good in terms of, doing a lot of R&D around, what is being taught in various parts of the world around a particular topic, right? So be it research, content development, auditing requirement, or managing the teacher pool itself. And we had different nomenclature like teacher captain and, different types of lingo around it. And some of the teachers who were doing it consistently in a very high quality way, they were also getting onboarded as a full-time teachers.
No, so that's interesting, because moment you talk about live classes, then, obviously it cannot be something that happens at the back room, can't happen at the, on weekends and all that, right? You need to be present in front. So to that extent, I would assume that it would probably be difficult for people who are involved in live classes to be able to do more than some X number of hours on a weekly basis. But typically, where do you see the scale at? How much of it was live content? Because I think a lot of it has got to do with if I look at a teacher and look at a teacher's roadmap in a school, many of them teach in one school for 8 years, 10 years. Maybe they move around subjects a little bit, but beyond that, there is no intellectual growth, for them. But a platform like this, where they could sometimes be doing live teaching, sometimes be producing content, sometimes be producing research. So if all of this is packaged into one role, don't you think getting them full time is what would probably be the best way to move this forward? Because if we are not now talking about one part of the role which is similar to what they do in schools, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, you are bang on. So the type of work or the type of expectation which I just shared with you is not connected to every teacher, right? Some teachers are good in a particular thing, so they get that kind of opportunity, right? Now the thing is that after a certain point of time, when you increase the responsibility of the teacher and they continue consistently do good, it is better to have them onboarded as a full-time employee rather than having a part-time teacher, right? So that is what we did, right? A lot of positions in the company even now are being taken care by people who were earlier teachers.
So once they become this employee, do they still continue to teach a few hours and so on? Is that passion for teaching still remain?
Yeah, most of them do, right?
Nice.
A teacher is always a teacher, right? And, they
Correct.
don't completely disconnect them. And I love that part of, their passion, right? So it is not that, they become a corporate employee, right? That's of course there, but, most of them, I have found that, they crave for teaching. So they always keep, few of the students with themselves, and they say that, that also helps them, understanding what is going on the ground, right? And they have a first-hand experience around various aspects which they are anyway supposed to solve when they are in the senior role.
So is it fair to say that somebody who is probably teaching in a school is not very sure whether they want to take the full leap or not, maybe comes on board as a part-time teacher, teaches a few classes and then looks at the opportunities and then probably grows into other functions and then become a full-time employee. Is that looking like a good career path? You start from part-time, get into full-time, do other things, but still remain in touch with teaching.
Yeah, for some of them, yes. But, many of the teachers, they have their hard constraint of time, right? They are already involved in a school or, some other thing, right? And they can't. People who are like, different people have different situations on their end, right? And
Yeah, but once they become full-time, they have to leave their jobs anyway, right? They will not be able to do.
then they have to leave their job. But some people come because of their passion to teach, right? So they are doing job somewhere and they are teaching here, right? So that is also there. They are either teaching somewhere else in a school or in some other setup.
Okay. Cool. So let's get into a little bit of the product side and the business side. And it was amazing to read about the fact that you guys got to $10 million in less than a year, and this is the early stages. So, and also at that time, it did look like that you guys are mostly directly selling to the parents or to the child, right? This is not it's a direct B2C play. And over a period of time, you've moved into more of a hybrid role, both B2B and B2C. So how did that transition happen? Was that natural, or did you see the business moving more towards a school-controlled education system versus directly reaching out to the consumer?
No, we were experimenting around various, ways of getting the market share, right? And of course, a school is an important ingredient in the entire education ecosystem, right? So that was important, to explore, right? And we are present in multiple countries. Some country it is difficult, some countries it is relatively easy. There are so many factors, right?
Right.
Even right now, our biggest acquisition is directly through the parent, right? Which is B2C, right? Of course, we also engage with the school because now the company has developed a more, sort of value add, for different types of, people in the system, right? But largely, even right now, the acquisition is through the direct, parent acquisition.
So in the school case, typically, is it the same product that reaches the student through the school, or do you have more products for school teachers and stuff like that?
So we have two types of thing. One is that, we have offering for the online experience, and we also have offering for the offline experience, right? So one can go in the classroom and, deliver the content in an offline setting, right? We also have our offline, centers in Vietnam. Right, so we have offline centers in Ho Chi Minh City, right? So we have developed content for both the medium, right? When we go with the school, some of the schools are fine doing it online, some of the schools are fine doing it offline in the classroom setup, right? In some of the cases, we have also found a school asking their teachers to be trained around our content, and they will ultimately deliver. We have also, done that, but primarily, if you ask the predominant medium of delivery, it remains online even now.
Okay. And this is across geography, or is there some different learning for different place? Would offline work better for Vietnam, and are there any cultural nuances like that?
Yeah, so Satish, there are of course differences across different countries, and that is why in Vietnam we also opened our offline center, because the omni-channel presence is more prominent there. Parents are very keen. Parents spend time to take their ward and child to the center, and I have seen many parents waiting in the center, till the time child is taking classes, right? So I find them very committed and serious about. In other countries, people are more comfortable with online also, right? So of course there are different learning, but I think post pandemic. It has become a common pattern that people have accepted online as a medium for education as well, right? So I don't think that becomes a very big concern in any of the country.
No, but online as a supplementary form of education is one thing, but replacing the school is another thing, right?
We don't believe in replacing the school because we are adding more to what the schools are delivering, right? We are not competing with the school directly and saying that we will do a better teaching than a school. We are saying that there are many other things which are also very relevant and important. We'll teach that part.
Okay, cool. So, let's talk through a little bit of the growth in terms of geography, right? Now you're in so many countries. How many of them happened organically? How many of them happened through? And you also acquired a few other businesses, which were doing complementary stuff, right? So, what came through acquisitions? What happened organically? And even when you did that organically, was there a specific reason why certain geographies were selected? For example, I wouldn't have thought of Vietnam as a natural choice, right? The language is different, culture is different, though the content components may remain the same, but the delivery is very, very different. So, what led you to make some of these choices?
Yeah. When I reflect back, Satish, we didn't have any rule book at that point of time. We were trying to make a global academy and a global company in education. So we didn't go with any preconceived notion. And then we were navigating into different countries because it was anyway pandemic time, and everybody was turning to be online, right? So it was easier at that point of time. And because we didn't have any preconceived notion or prior understanding of what is there in which country, right, we went with zero fear, right, and that helped. We
Right.
started with Middle East, and then we went to Southeast Asia, then North America, India, and but one thing I realized that initial traction is easy to get into any country, but if you really want to solve a particular country, you need to get into the cultural and other nuances to really go deeper and have a significant market share, right? And then we realized that some of the places we will have to have a local setup. Like for example, Vietnam was significantly language locked, right? And for our team, let's say here in India, it was very difficult to penetrate beyond a point, because the country was language locked, right? So we thought that and we were getting a lot of traction on our online courses initially when we launched in Vietnam. So we thought that why don't we go the acquisition route and grow inorganically also, right? So that was one of the acquisition we did, which very well resonated with the purpose which we had. I wanted to create a high quality platform around new age skills, and the gentleman in Education 10x, they were doing financial literacy, right? So they reached out to us, and we found that it's very like-minded thought, and it connects with our purpose. And they said that Ravi, if you are doing it, why don't we do it together? So we did that acquisition because it added to the core towards the purpose which we had anyway when I started the company. So right, so some of the acquisitions were for geography expansion, some of the acquisitions were for course expansion, right? So that is how it worked. But by and large, if I say we started with the Middle East initially, and then that time everybody was chasing USA, and I thought that let me get into a bigger, more difficult territory, which was Southeast Asia, because it has a language barrier, and there were so many things to be navigated, because different countries in Southeast Asia have completely different customer behavior, right? Be it Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, right, or Malaysia. So we found that it will be a heterogeneous sort of problem. But once you solve it, it will be very difficult for anybody else to just overnight enter and outclass us with the pricing power. And that time we were bootstrapped, so we wanted to create a moat for ourselves. So we entered into Southeast Asia, and we tackled the harder problem. And gradually, of course, everybody goes for some of the biggest sort of market, which is either USA, China, or India. So we went to USA and India as well gradually, right? China was very regulated. So this is how the journey happened, right?
And these acquisitions that you did, this happened post you getting VC funding, or it started even before?
Yeah, so some of the discussion had started beforehand, right? And then by the time we executed, we had the funding, right? So actual on paper execution happened post funding, but the discussions were on, for some of them, before funding.
So somehow these acquisitions, were they like complete buyout of these businesses, and then you continue to run under the umbrella, or they were, what was like the economic nature of these acquisitions?
Most of the cases we completely bought.
Okay. And the founders or promoters who were running those businesses continue to run the businesses inside.
Yeah, so they come on board and they run their baby themselves, right? And gradually, if we find more relevant sort of positions for them, we basically offer them, and post that, it's a natural navigation, right? Some people are excited for some kind of thing in the company. They gradually fit into that.
Okay. And in terms of this people level integration itself, obviously there is business synergy, there is product synergy, and so on. But a lot of these acquisitions fail because there is no post acquisition integration, right? You can't do it because there's people synergy and so on. So in terms of when you bought out the companies, were there any things that you looked at to make sure, post acquisition, we would be able to integrate them well, people culture wise? Was that was there anything you had to look at?
Yeah, a few things, and important thing to consider, Satish. One is that I wanted the captain of the ship to be part of the game post acquisition. I didn't want to touch any acquisition wherein the founder is willing to leave immediately after the acquisition, right? So because if it's your baby, you know how to manage it, in the best possible way, right? And I made sure that all the founder who are running those company, they are also part of the setup, post acquisition, right? So that's one. And second is, it should meaningfully connect with what we want to do, right? Either it gives us we had three vectors of thinking. One vector was that geography expansion, second was course expansion, and third was channel expansion, right? So it adds a very meaningful and big channel, of growth, or it adds a new dimension to the offering, a new SKU, which basically adds more firepower to the purpose which we started the company with. And third is that, because we wanted to become a global company, right? If it adds more strength in terms of expanding ourselves to a given territory, which is otherwise very difficult. So these are the three considerations I had in mind whenever I was evaluating, and one of the important, sort of prerequisite was that, founders should be there. Founders should not immediately exit.
No, I think, Ravi, that's a very important point. Every time I talk to anyone who's done multiple acquisition, this thing keeps coming back. Everybody says, we want the founders to continue, no point in getting the company, and the founder has their own plans and so on. And looks like that's a constant theme in trying to make sure that the acquiring and the acquirer founder has some chemistry as well. I'm glad to hear the same thing, panning out. Now, let's talk through the VC funding stuff. Obviously, you guys, though Bootstrap, were doing pretty well. Were you already close to profitability by the time you raised VC money? And what was the primary reason for raising money? Was it to kind of fund these acquisitions, or was there any other larger thought process behind that?
I realized that it's a business wherein it's the cash comes upfront and then you have to deliver, right? So there's no very hard constraint of having a lot of money beforehand. So, and that is why I started Bootstrap. For almost a year we ran it that way, right? Without taking any loan or any sort of funding from anybody, right? Even not even a small check size, right? So it was all going well, but when we started navigating within a year, I realized that the opportunity is much bigger than what I had imagined on day one, right? And it was compounding. So the idea initially was that we were willing to do it in couple of geographies, right? But we had by that time expanded into more than 12 countries, right? And then it was becoming very important that there will be a lot of things involved if you really want to scale globally, right? Number one. And number two, inorganic growth is also something which I had learned in my previous startup, right? And I thought that I should compound on both. So, and if that is the case, I just can't be running on a very shoestring budget, and run it so tightly that I lose the opportunity, right, and the chance to grab bigger market share, right. So that was the idea. And when I started talking, right, it was not a very strong desire to raise, but when I started talking, I found that even the VCs who are discussing, the kind of exposure they have and the kind of value add they can do, it will be very significantly helpful for the company. Like for example, Binny Bansal, he himself has made such an incredible company, right? Being founder of Flipkart, right? I thought that his journey will really help me navigate it better than anybody else, right? And then we had Deborah Quazzo from GSB. She had she has humongous experience around various edtech across the globe. He wrote their edtech focused,
Right.
fund, and who will do a better sort of insight sharing about what works, what does not work in different market, right. Because they have a incredibly huge global exposure, right. So that was second. And then that time we wanted to expand into Southeast Asia. So BNext came into picture, where they were based out of Singapore, and they were already investing in companies in Vietnam and Indonesia, right. And then later on, PI Invest, wherein we again got incredible people who had operated big setups like Wipro and things like that, right? So I thought that the value add they are going to bring in, that is much more than anything else. So it was temptation not just of money, but also the people, the kind of people who we are adding.
No, that is interesting, because given that your past experience, especially with housing raised a lot of money, right? Comparing that to here in terms of running bootstrapped, and I know your business model here is different, where customer pays you upfront, so a little bit of that pressure is off. But still, after a certain point in time, you will need external capital, external distribution, to grow the company. And this also, you seem to have just done one round or one or two rounds in the company, right? So what is the financing strategy now? You want to continue to take VC money, expand and go forward, or you're at a point where you will not need any external capital to build the company?
Yeah, so we raised in 2021, right? That was the last round, and after that, we have been running on our own. And I can't say anything for certainty, because if you have a very interesting proposal on the table and then you find that relevant, maybe you require money to have acquisition or things like that, right? But as of now, our focus is not the funding. Our focus is expansion, and our focus is bettering the experience, right? So I think anything, as they say that to have a real meaningful outcome, it takes almost 10 years of time, right? Whether it's about raising your child, or building a company, or doing anything which is meaningful for a longer duration. I think we are in that journey. The support of investor, the capital support, and their experience support, that is already in place, right? We have now an incredible team, right? We are right now focused more in terms of how do we make it a generational company, in terms of adding real value to the end user, right? Parents who are trusting us, how do we add more value to them?
Fantastic. So let's come to the one of the things that's pretty interesting for us, which is compensation, right? So when we look at teacher compensation, and generally, like I mentioned, any startup, one of the ways of generating wealth for people who help build it is to give them stock options. Now, in all edtech companies, I call this the good, bad, and ugly. We've seen good outcome come from Physics Wala, who went IPO, a bad outcome with Unacademy, where too much noise around, ESOPs were given not given well enough, and so on. And the ugly version is obviously Byju's, where everybody's wealth got eroded. So you have all these examples, right, in terms of how somebody could do it well, how somebody could probably want to do it well but messed up, and how the third one was completely out of whack. So what is your opinion of ESOPs? How have you used in your company, and what is the relevance of that, especially with respect to the teaching side of the people?
Yeah. So this, to me, generally cap table is considered as a record which is of those people who funded the company or maybe started the company, right? So a significant portion of the cap table is around them, right? To me, I think I fundamentally believe that a significant portion of the company is also for those people who built the company, right? And building a company is not a single person endeavor, right? It is
Absolutely.
a lot of people involved, right? So a lot of some attention goes to the leadership team, which is very right. And of course, the ecosystem is maturing and people are understanding that there are so many exits and IPOs in recent times in India that clearly says that many of the people, like thousands of people, are able to encash value out of the sweat equity which they have gotten from the company, and that is adding a lot of positive thing. To me, whoever helps build the company should also be a participant of the cap table, right? That is the fundamental thought. Now, in our case, that is not just the people sitting in HQ, but also the teachers who are teaching on the front, right? Because we are an education company, right? So builders are not necessarily people who are holding a post or who are, part of our headquarter, right? It should also be those people who are front facing your customer and holding the baton for you in terms of the entire experience, right? I thought that it is real injustice for them if we don't consider them when I'm considering about, let's say, ESOPs, right? And that is what we ended up doing. We said that there should be ESOP not only for people in a given typical designated role, but also to the people who are doing the teaching, right? Most of them are full-time teachers, right? Available as an employee to us, right? So we offered them because they have already earned their reputation. As I explained in the start, there is a gradual progression for them from a simple teaching staff towards capturing more senior roles, right? But fundamentally, they are teacher and they have navigated that journey. So we ended up rewarding a lot of them, this kind of benefits also. And I think that is the right way.
So if there's a young founder trying to set up a company of and want to have a similar thought process that as you have, of irrespective of their role, if they are building the helping the company grow, then you will end up sharing something. Are there any guidelines that you would suggest? When would you do it? Would you do it as soon as they join the company, after a few years? How long should they be with you to earn? Would you put any milestones around when they would vest these options? Any guidance around that for a young founder?
Yeah, I think most of the time we end up doing this mistake that we connect this with the designation or title, and we say that if somebody is joining as a VP or something, right, we'll give them ESOP upfront, right? Irrespective they have created value in the company or not, right? My thought is a little bit different. I think that the seniority in the company is not proportionate to the title or the number of years of contribution. It is proportionate to the value which you have created in the company, right? Now the value can be created by anybody, right? It can be some senior person or it can be a relatively junior person, right? My point is that there are two things. One is a set norm that if somebody is joining in a set role, in a significant role, then you have to show the trust upfront, and then you have to offer some ESOPs, right? So that is there, and that is practiced in most of the companies. But in certain other cases, if somebody is already part of the ecosystem or of your company, right, and they are continuously demonstrating their value, and if the company is getting a lot of benefit because of that, then there should be a subsequent grant also, right? There can't be any hard timeline. In our case, for teachers, I think we considered people who have at least 2 years of value add, and they have gotten into the full time this thing because their credibility. We considered a lot of them, right? But different industry, different context, it can differ. But I think, like for example, in every performance review, we add ESOPs, right? It's just not the appraisal process is not just about salary, it's also about subsequent grant. Like you hired somebody, with a particular notion, but that was just your initial understanding of that person. After joining the company, if the person is continuously adding more and more value, you should add up to his ESOP kitty. That is how I think. That is why our appraisals are also around ESOP, not just about salary. Our thing is connected to more about who is adding what kind of value. It should be it can be related to a given title, or it may not be related to a given title, right? But that understanding, the founder and the top team should have that this particular person is adding a lot of value, and hence he or she deserves this kind of grant. So that is what we have done so far.
No, that is absolute fantastic advice and a very good way to think about it. Now, when it comes to liquidity, obviously there is one liquidity that happens when the company eventually becomes a listed company and so on, right? But between you, for all practical purposes, Ravi, I consider you guys as a very young company as well, right? In the sense it's been 5 years old and growing and so on. Have you ever considered, or has it become important to kind of provide any liquidity for these stock options, or you're saying it is thinking it's a little too early to make that call?
Yeah, I think for some of the cases in which the acquisition happened, or some of the people who were holding good amount of equity in their previous firm, right? We provided liquidity to them, right? Otherwise, as you said, the company is too young, and most of the cases, the vesting is still due, right? And we have certain milestone in our mind to actuate it, right? So it has happened for a very limited set of people, mostly during the acquisition events, right? But in otherwise, I think me, board, everybody is so aligned about having liquidity at an appropriate time. And but it also depends upon how long is the journey, right? We are very young and we are looking forward to it. We have some milestone in our mind. If we achieve that, I would be more than happy to actuate it.
Fantastic. So you talked about vesting. So typically, what do you think is an appropriate vesting? Whether this, again, unlike salary, ESOPs are a little complicated, right? You earn it over a period of time. Some use 4 years, some use 5. And it is not equal every year, and so on and so forth. Is there any specific mechanism that you believe works rightly?
See, in our case, I have always connected with the amount of contribution you have made to grow the company, right? So in our case, there are two portions to it. One is that the vesting period, and the second one is the exercise period, right? So what we have done is that we have kept it very simple. The vesting is 4 years, 25%, right? The exercise period is twice the number of years you have stayed in the company, right? So you stayed in the company for 5 years. Then even if you leave the company after 10 years, till 10 more years, you can keep it with yourself, right? And then so total period will be 5 plus 10, 15 years, right? Something like that, right? So I have tried to connect it with the people who have given more of their time and energy in terms of building the company, and it is proportionately connected. The vesting period is very simple, 25% every year, without any cliff or without any condition.
No, the exercise period is a great way to look at it. I know the industry is all over the place. Some people do 3 months, some people do 5 years, and so on. But doing what you have suggested is a fantastic way to do that. Now, coming back to the next steps of the company, right now, how many countries are you guys in now?
Predominantly, we are in 4 regions: USA, which is like US and Canada, North America. We are also in little bit. We have started in Europe, right? UK, we are present now. Southeast Asia, you already know, we are there. We are also in Middle East and India, right? So these are as far as the top 3 regions are concerned, it's USA, Southeast Asia, and Middle East.
So when you say you are present there, you have customers there, right? But your own physical presence in terms of officers and so on, does that also follow after you get to a certain size in a particular country?
In some of the countries, yes. Like for example, Vietnam, we are physically present with the proper entity, right? We are also there in Indonesia, right? So yes, given the stage and size of the business in a particular country, we accordingly take it further.
Fabulous. So, what is the next big thing that, whether now that you have AI coming in, has that helped your teachers? Are they scared because of it? How has AI, changed some of this, and what are your outlook for the future in terms of how we would begin to look at generating content, for these purposes?
Yeah, I come from tech background, and I must admit that AI is such a big thing, right? It's disrupting so many things across various walks of life, right? In our case, also, it is a very very important thing, and then we are leveraging it in various cases, right? Many people ask that will AI replace teacher? We are in K-12, right? Teachers are of various kind, right? In I think adult segment, wherein you are teaching to a grown up, person who has a goal oriented mindset while learning. Here it is more about engaging the child. It is more about keeping the child curious. I think non-human offering will not make a lot of sense when you are dealing with very young children, right? So, but then at the same time, I must admit that AI is doing a lot of things which was earlier very difficult for us. In our case, AI is not replacing the teacher, but it is making teacher better, right? The earlier teacher was supposed to do a lot of things, peripheral things, not just taking the classes and engaging with the child, but now the teacher is doing a very focused activity, right? A lot of post class sort of evaluation, content creation, personalization, many of those things are happening through AI, and the teacher is now more focused in terms of engaging with the child, right? So in my view, in K-12 especially, I think AI is going to make the teacher better than earlier, right? And many other regular stuff which is very important to maintain quality, like auditing the classes, like giving real time feedback by understanding what is going in the class, right? AI agents can do a much better job, and they are doing it, right? So we are leveraging AI that way, but I don't think that in K-12 it will be very easy to replace the teacher.
No, more than replacing, have the teachers kind of warmed up to it? Do they accept that there's a new technology that will help me? And have you set up any training programs and so on to help upskill the teacher with this?
Yeah, we do. We have so many AI tools integration, and we are constantly training them. Like for example, our coding platform, right? We have launched a completely new offering. We are right now teaching the teachers around, training the teachers around this, and then we have done a sort of pilot launch in USA, and the acceptance is phenomenal, right? Wherein a teacher along with the AI agent, they are both going to co-teach, right? And AIs will do a lot of sort of invigilation or data capturing around various aspects of the child, and it will help the teacher with the right prompt in terms of doing a much better sort of experience and engagement for the child, right? So it's happening, and we are constantly training the teachers. I think it's going to be very exciting.
No, fantastic. Ravi, this has been such a fabulous discussion. Thank you so much. I think, your thoughts on a whole bunch of things from ESOPs to your own personal journey, how you started. And I'm sure your grandfather would be very proud of what you have done. And your journey has been fabulous. And I hope you continue to grow and achieve something that no other edtech companies have reached here. Because moment we say edtech, you almost have a love and hate stuff. You have some good examples, you have some bad examples. But I hope, with the kind of thinking and the thought process that you bring, we are going to see something, really good come out from you guys pretty soon. Thanks so much, Ravi, for your time.
No, thank you.